Okay. So I call to order the Board of Assessors meeting at 9:38. 9:37. Okay. All right, pledge allegiance, right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
All right, whoever's here, whoever's not here, say aye. You're here though, you're present, doesn't matter, you can snooze.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Pick 'em.
He's gonna have to take a picture. All right, 1050 Williams.
Okay, so, I guess I talked to Jim last week. Now, this is regarding, the warehouse
Yes.
that's gonna be,
Yeah.
and I guess, Jim Aguirre finally got some sort of plans, so, we're kind of talking about our property card of what we have for square footage of the building compared to what they're doing, so it's kind of a work in progress right now. So
Okay.
there's not really much.
Adding to the building or just?
No, but our property card has two warehouses, because I guess it used to be two. I have a property card if you want to, it's really dark. But, you know, and I've already showed you the parking lot, you know, so, Jim and I are just, we need to get on the same page because depending on how large it is, it might need to have sprinklers and something, so we need to.
So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, so definitely.
So nothing for attack.
No, not at-
What's the status of the check to land where that building?
I'm still not sure how much is being
Oh, you need the square feet, okay.
of the whole lot with the. But the building is already being taxed commercial, and so is the paving of the parking lot, so. I need to do a little more research,
Oh,
just
okay.
to see what's.
Yeah,
What
right.
needs to come out, or,
And a little bit more from Jim on what the plan is and.
yeah, because he was difficult for me to get a plan, I guess.
Okay.
First.
Yep.
So he just called me last week.
Okay.
So like it says, we're gonna be on there for a bit each.
That's fine. We can address it, sure.
Okay.
Invoices.
Invoices, okay, so, on the invoices, remember that $1,500 RRP? So, I reached out to the company and the invoice that had June 30th on it, that is for fiscal year 23. So it wasn't, they didn't take the previous year out of this year, they took it correctly, so this needs to be out of 23's
Which
budget.
is the year we're in.
Yes.
Some.
You did, I just needed to do a little more research to show that it's coming out of 23, not 22, and it wasn't a mistake last time. But I needed to do a little follow-up. So you don't have to re-sign,
Okay,
I'm just telling you,
we're not approving.
You're saying we were correct in signing it and it was 23, not 22.
right, but when we signed it, I gave it to them and it was still June 22. So
Right.
they were saying, we already did this. So that's why it wasn't gonna be done to 23, but then it was questioned, but I also included on there, a couple of the invoices. Even though I have it attached, the signed one, when you guys signed it, right?
Okay.
I ran out of breath. I got really bad neck pain, for like 3 days now, so I'm like. Stiff, rolled up.
No sudden.
So we're just signing the WB Mason bill.
And the one for, advanced reimbursed for postage. Certified mailing,
You're not really signing from the.
yes, definitely signing the front.
I motion that we sign the invoices as presented in a total of, well, 2 new invoices for $71.53 and
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
premature signers. You know.
That's all right. We got it.
Yeah, the WB Mason, it came in, it's individual invoices, but then it came all lumped as one, so the top one should be fine to sign and not all of the invoices. Next is motor vehicle abatements. There's not too many little 8 on there, so.
That we sign both vehicle abatements in the amount of $1,363.06.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, the next one is the assessor annual, and actually, it's all correct now. It wasn't coming out of the right account, so Helen and I worked together and it's all, everything was coming out of a 2-person line instead of 2 and 1, because the chairman is still separate on there. Yes, so she reversed everything down and it's all out of the right. Okay.
That we sign payroll, for $809.24.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, so the next on the list is first rent review for 2410 Cedar Street. They are in chapter and they're selling. So I attached a map. So the yellow is the houses on one of them, and then it was things were kind of screwy with the way that was. Yes. Because I don't think they thought that everything was in chapter, just this outlined, just this larger one, not the 2 pieces. So the purchase and sale is already attached. And actually not realizing that the whole thing was in chapter, not just the excess land that goes over into Rehoboth. They kind of like should have been closed a month or more ago. So they had to wait for us to all do our signatures.
You should have closed the whole.
Yes,
transaction.
yes, so every week, the rates are going up on their mortgage.
When did Rehoboth?
It has nothing to do with here, it just, when the people that are, Patella was the last name, it goes over into Rehoboth where they have chapter over there also.
So we're only acting on what piece of land? The blue?
No, the yellow, where the house is, and the piece around it that is combined.
So they're waiting on us. They're waiting on us for this because they can't close their deal until we.
Well, it's us, it's zoning, it's everywhere.
Everybody has to. Right.
Yeah,
okay.
so we're already on the agenda.
If they can't lock in rates,
Well,
that's problematic. then.
I told her that we were addressing this today.
Okay.
Someone else has a meeting today, and we're on the selectmen's meeting for next week already. Just trying to help them push the
All
along.
right, so we need that on this.
Yeah.
Now, I have 2 questions.
Yep.
One is, how did you know? Because I was gonna bring up my constant.
How do I know?
We should have maps. How did you know what was in chapter?
Well, it's the house is not in, so the acre of the house, well, so this is the map. You know what? I'll show you. This is all liens and things to sign off. So Lisa went in and she printed out maps of everything, so you could see where. So
My question is narrow to the, what's in chapter versus what's out of chapter. How do you said they didn't know the whole thing was in chapter? Was it just based on the number?
ignorance, yes, that's it. But we're setting up some goals in our office and we are going to start cracking down on chapter. What with maps, people are gonna be telling us what we're gonna be verifying that they're really,
In chapter,
Farming
not in
or-
chapter, okay.
you know, you can't say you're doing goals when it's all woods.
Right,
So-
it has to be, and what is the rule on that? It has to be actively
Yes,
farmed.
because you have to
To stay in
produce at least
61.
$500
Annually.
in profit or, you know,
In
sales, should I say, it doesn't have to be.
Right, right.
So we're setting some goals for our office, and that is one of them
Okay,
that we're gonna,
yeah.
you know,
Is that annual, by the way, that $500 annually? All right, and, okay,
so.
yeah, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but if somebody was sick one year and they couldn't farm it, is that an issue? Can we make exceptions on that?
I mean, this is us using near map, because obviously we're not gonna walk 70 acres of
Right,
land,
Okay.
but this is near map, you can see.
Yep.
If it's being farmed, or
Right.
it's just overgrown and people are just saying, yeah, this is what I do, so.
I got you.
If it's in 61A
Mhm.
and I'm farming,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, something happens and I can't farm anymore. And I don't notify the town, and it's growing up now into trees and brush, and I say, you know what? I'm gonna let it go to forest land, wild and whatever, that other, how do I change classifications? Do I get back to you and
Yeah,
say,
it would just come
it's
to
not
us,
agriculture anymore, but now it's gonna be
it's gonna be,
wild and open space.
yeah, recreational where, or,
Okay.
yeah. it's recreational where, just-
All right.
So that's the choice. And if there was some other circumstance, somebody got ill for a year, but then we're gonna farm it the following year, we can talk about that.
Right.
Okay,
So
That
what
makes
you just said about Norwalk, though, you know, that's a sensitive subject for me.
Mhm.
I do not approve of actively going through the list of people and looking at their properties. And if somebody complains, if there's some sort of reason that we might suspect that they're not doing what they should be doing in agriculture, then we should go in. I do not like the idea of surveillance. I think we talked about that.
We
But
did, I think we're talking about residents. So for example, I'm not 61A, right? So I'm not zone 61A and I don't have any land in 61A. 61A, you have to prove.
Yeah,
that
under
you're
penalty and
actively
return.
farming. Now, we don't look at tax returns to say, hey, did you generate $500 in income?
Right.
Whether it's profit or not, did you generate $500 in sales from that property? Whether it's what, flowers or corn? And with you being in there, the caveat to that is you have to actively farm it. So the only
Well, I
way,
understand that.
yeah,
So
so
that's
the only
what-
way is to look at just registered 61A. And that's
That's
what you
all.
said, it's restricted to 61A land only. Not your personal house. So unless your house is in 61A and that just happens to be on 5 acres or whatever,
You're,
and you see.
every year you classify what you, if it's every year,
And you have to sign every year.
you sign it and you're
We
under
renew
penalty
it,
and
that's correct. And right now, the rules are coming in.
aware of, right.
Right.
October first is the deadline.
So you're saying people that put in each chapter aware that we will be.
This could have been, lots of towns actually do this yearly, we
Don't.
have.
We haven't. And
So-
they're basically avoiding paying taxes on it and they just throw it in 61A and never do anything with it. So they're avoiding the taxes on that property and not farming it. So I think what he's saying, what Bill is saying, if I understand correctly, is, hey, maybe we should tell everybody, listen, we're gonna start to monitor whether you're actively farming this land or not.
And I don't have a problem with that.
Right, kind of give them a
It's
heads up.
something maybe we should have done
Yeah.
all along,
that's
but we
fine.
didn't have the
It's fine.
resources.
Listen, you got a starting point somewhere. So,
Exactly.
hey, folks, listen, you're filing for your 61, you just be aware that by this time next year, we're
Yeah,
gonna see
where-
if you're actually actively farming.
And we're gonna
property.
print out a map and they can mark off where they,
Yeah,
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is that these people should be made aware that there's a trade-off.
correct.
Or you're getting a tax break, but you're also allowing us to.
To look to make sure you're doing it.
Which- which it might possibly say that we could do this at any time in the paperwork they sign up.
Yeah,
I can
that's probably.
do more research, but I'm pretty sure by them signing that, we are allowed to inspect it.
Technically, every tax exemption requires verification. My
Right.
mother was eligible,
The state asks, wants us.
and I had to submit, because she was in a nursing home, but she still owned the property. I had to submit a copy of her latest checking account, because that was the only account she had, she didn't have anything else. the balance in that, the recent one. And I had to swear under oath that I wasn't renting the property, that nobody was living there. And all this other stuff, and where she was temporarily, which happened to be a nursing home, which eventually became permanent, and then we sold it. But every single year, because I would go over to the assessor's office, and see George Matosa and say, hey, George, I'm here with a paper, you know, and as a matter of fact, I said to him, hey, I'm wondering if this house is worth, let us be assessed. And he came and looked at it. He said, no, because you've got some unfinished areas upstairs. We thought the whole thing was finished. He said, but it's too late to abate it because, you know, I'm just wondering anyhow. But again, that was even more personal than somebody looking at a map. Is she growing corn? I mean, right. It was.
No, what I'm saying, my concern is privacy of citizens in that, anytime you look at near map. And you're looking for something, maybe you'll see something that's not necessarily farming. Maybe something else, I don't know. You want to give examples, but you see something, all of a sudden you're making an action, thinking in terms of like what police need to do for probable cause, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's about.
Advance, like when they come in to do the form. Yeah. We now have this software that allows us to view the property. So we want you to be aware of it.
Right, so exactly. Now, here's the other option. We don't use near map to do that. We actually say we're coming out next Tuesday. I'll make sure you find it. Right, so that's kind of just the check and balance. Okay, if you're living 61A, you've got to open yourself up to us looking. Now, we use near map because it's the most efficient way to do it, right? If not, I'm fine with not doing that, but that means we got to actually say, hey, guys, we're coming out next Tuesday to do this, and we've got to have to do that all year round. So one or the other. So we either go out there and put a set of eyes on it.
I'll look at what they sign and let you know
Yeah.
how it's worded that gives us authority to do.
Is it
So that everybody can be aware of.
is it our form?
This is the state form,
State farm.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay,
so.
that's fair. Yeah, that's
And
fair.
There's multiple.
Yeah, and if it's not too clear, I would think if you have just a printed thing that says, by the way.
Right.
I'm giving you this to advise you that we do have software that allows us to do this.
Right.
So that.
Right, so
when we send
we'll
a verify
next
that
time.
you have agricultural land. Yeah.
I think to Bill's point too, I think it would be fair to say, listen, we're not interested in anything else but farming aspect.
Exactly.
Well, I would like that to be our policy.
Yeah, right. It should be. I mean, it really should.
So what I'm saying, so if I were to give an extreme example, if you're looking at, are they growing stuff here? And you see, they're growing a patch of corn, but they built a barn on the land. That's not what you're there looking for. You're looking to see if they're growing corn,
Right.
not, we're gonna have a building to tax.
Right.
That would be an extreme example of what I'm saying. I don't want us to turn into like a police state where everybody's, big brother's watching.
Right.
And every single.
I would agree with that, with the privacy, and I think sometimes do that.
But in the form of.
Sometimes I don't want that, but it's my point.
Something other than the form of verification. He represents, if you will, the tax department. If somebody has built a bond, what I would do in that case is just notify the building commissioner and say, I was doing my overview of 61A. I noticed the bond. Are you aware of that?
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly not comfortable with.
She can, all right.
So I
build my barn out in the middle of my cornfield when nobody knows about it. You build one and it's in plain sight. You're not being taxed.
because your neighbor's wrapping up. Because your neighbor's
That's
up. Now, if you got enough land where they can see it, so. I get it's a sensitive spot, right? So Bill, you're right. I don't want to become a police.
That's what I said. Maybe that wasn't a good
Yeah.
example. How about they're growing pot? Or something like that.
Well, you got 13 plants instead of 12? Well.
That, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to say, whatever it may be.
Why don't I, what is it signed?
What is our restriction? So for example, you'll look, they signed the 61A, and we have to look to verify that it's being
Which other towns do.
for whatever it is for. Okay, we look at it. Now, she sees a barn in the middle of the field. Is she now required to report that? Because if she is, then she's negligent in her duties to not report it. we're negligent in our duties to not check on 61.
I want to remind you of the oath that we had to take when we were elected.
Correct.
The special oath, not just the one, the oath of office, the one that the town clerk made us take that specifically relates to assessors. We swore that we would fairly assess all properties and basically treat everyone fairly, so forth and so on. I don't remember the exact language. That's an obligation that we swore that we would do.
Right. So
So I don't
that is,
wanna be-
so this dovetails into.
I don't
Her responsibility.
She's not
Is
doing her job.
Is she in
number one.
trouble because she didn't
I
say, hey, it's a barn on the property.
I
I don't see
don't
things as a barn on the
But
property.
this,
So let's nail down exactly what our responsibility is, let's do it, instead of continuing.
And
to
what
circle
she can do
So-
legally with that software and what her obligations are as an employee at the town of Dayton. I don't want to be the property Gestapo either. By the same token,
That's
we took an oath that we would treat everybody fairly.
And then I think
when we discussed this near map software,
that we were.
and I brought up strong concerns about it.
Yep.
What I was told at that point in time was this was only going to be used in the case where there was some sort of audit or dispute or something like that, that we were not going to be actively monitoring.
Right, which we're not, so we're not looking at your property because you're not in 61A, so you don't come up on.
But if there's a 61A property, you are.
Correct, but we're obligated to do that. So I think everybody that has a 61A property should be aware, and we can make them aware somehow to say, listen, if you file a 61A, we have the right and the obligation to look to your property to see that it's actively being farmed.
Pretty sure
When
that.
we do that, if we find dwellings on your property that aren't in the
Building
plan over
permits
there,
weren't-
we are required by our sworn duty to report that. So think before you fill out that 61A. If you've got a barn out there and you're gonna get hit up for it, we have to look, and then we're obligated to report it. Right, we're just obligated. There's no way around that, Bill. That's our responsibility as our sworn part. So you're right in the sense that we're not just gonna arbitrarily pick Bill's property. You're not in 61A. She's only gonna be looking at 61A because they signed an agreement to say, it's okay to now look at my property, is what they're saying.
That's what it's.
And we're now obligated by oath to say, hey, I looked at it, it's being actively farmed, no problem with 61A. However, I saw a big barn, and now I'm also required to tell somebody that there's a big barn here. So you gotta tell the property owner, hey, listen, we're gonna check. You're allowing us to check by signing.
I get that, I get that.
Right.
But I'm saying what happens if, like
If you see it on the neighbor's property,
This-
I say forget,
you've got,
not your job.
this is in chapter, and this is not. And by the way, this is no criticism, nothing.
I'm not taking it that way at all.
Sometimes I go across that, I don't want this.
I know, but I know you by now, so.
I don't want you to think I'm saying anything bad. So this is in chapter, and Stephanie goes and looks in near map and sees, this land is not in chapter. Oh, what's that shed over there? That's suddenly appeared. It's not in chapter. So what she's doing effectively is actively surveilling that property. That's what I'm talking about.
She
Is
went and looked at 61A. That's
Exactly.
her obligation.
Right.
Okay. That's where it is.
I can tell you right now,
She's required to report from 61A property because she has the
But I
right.
think I can accept that. I think you can accept that, there's a
Okay.
trade-off. You're, let's say, all right, I want a tax break here, look at everything.
Yep.
Right. I think that it's kind of fair.
So,
But if you're not getting that tax break, you have the right to promise
right,
I think the important thing is, first of all, the software and the people in the assessor's office are not going to scan the entire town looking for.
no, that's what we
Oh,
said. It's
It's not
61A.
gonna happen. They're focused on it. Quite frankly, doing this is less invasive than what I had to do when I used to file the paperwork for my mother.
Right.
Okay, but it was clear to me, we need, okay, tell me what you need and I'll do it, all right?
So,
When she was able, she would go to the office and then fill it out for her.
so in other towns where this is modern accurate,
Mhm.
they've already set the precedence. So the folks that are filling out that 61A already know. So something new that we're starting in Dayton, so we should make everybody that files aware of the fact that, listen, we have to start a new procedure here. We have to
I
verify.
agree. I
Just
totally
be
agree with
aware,
that.
be sensitive to the fact that we don't want to be spying on you, and we're not. spying.
That's not what it's
It's not
about.
required to just check. Please understand that we're gonna look. And if you got anything that might not want to either declare it now or don't file 61A. Right, I mean, that's just the fairest way to handle it. So you probably know ahead of time, rather than knock on the door and say, oh, by the way, I see a big runoff.
Can you give me, what is the 61? Which people, which money people say?
Well, it's specific to what's there, it's, yeah, so it's a certain rate if they're doing corn. So it might only be $90 an acre
Mhm.
for corn
Instead of,
um,
Your residential rate.
reservoir,
Residential.
instead of buildable lot is 130,000 times the tax rate, the residential tax rate, where an
Value of the
acre.
property, times the tax rate, and then your tax.
So say it's $100 an acre, they have 5 acres of corn. So that's 500 times the commercial. So it's that small rate with small value with higher rate, the commercial rate. But instead of $130,000 times it's only $500 for those 5 acres.
the other question I
Yeah.
had about this was, so you said these people are stuck. Go ahead. Is there any reason why we couldn't have either just sign a meeting or have an emergency meeting or something like
We
that?
could have, but there's other people involved and that has to go to the selectmen
Mhm.
to,
Everyone would have to have a special meeting if they didn't have one.
but like I said, we're today, someone else is.
Zoning-
So it's conservation.
Yeah.
I gave it to Karen, so conservation, planning, us, and then it goes. to select.
Zoning tonight,
So
next week.
this is,
Zoning
I'm
is
sure,
starting tonight. Whoever's next
I,
on this
Oh, I think it's planned.
is tonight.
yeah,
I'm simply saying that,
I feel.
this sort of thing where it's an emergency.
We can, yeah, because that's what I was saying. This is urgent. This is urgent because they're talking about hundreds of dollars for 130 years.
Right, we talked about this, that yellow packet,
Yeah.
that yellow square.
Yeah.
So. Are you telling me that it has
Been held up.
always been in chapter
Mhm.
because they found something?
Yeah, behind it and
Not Rehoboth, we don't care
no,
about
not
that.
Rehoboth.
On
The
that
blue.
yellow square,
Yep, and the blue is theirs. Yellow is what's coming out of chapter and being sold.
but the blue is in Rehoboth, I thought.
No,
Blue
blue
is.
is still
It's
here,
not.
and then the whole bit that goes into the.
So they're only selling the yellow part.
Yes,
Yeah, they're selling the yellow, so they.
So
they're selling the
no,
So
just the yellow,
Just the yellow.
Who's gonna own this?
the same person.
they can
gonna
do that.
They're keeping
And
it,
they're gonna keep it in 61A
yes,
because they're active farm. They're just pulling the house and that little parcel out.
and they'll get a rollback
But
tax.
doesn't this become landlocked?
No, because it goes over into here.
Into Rehoboth.
Oh, so they
So
have.
they will actually.
Yes, they have access.
Correct. And we're all worried about that. So, yeah, let's ask for these folks so they can move along. We can push it.
So what I don't understand is, if it's been in chapter all this time, why did they not know they had to take it out before they put it on the market? Or
Oh,
before
That's up to the seller.
I-
That's the seller and the title.
But they are,
I
so
think it passed down like family,
Generation.
and I think they just refiled the same 61A every year, and then included the
And they probably didn't.
3.66 or whatever the interest was.
yeah,
So,
that could be too. Yeah, that could be
And
too.
I have been talking to the lawyer, and this is probably as soon as I could. I'm trying to help them out, right, by making sure everyone got their paperwork
Sure.
and they're on the agenda so that. this-
Yeah.
So
it's
we're
off,
the
so.
first ones it comes to,
Yeah.
and if we say hold it. And recommend that the town buy, let's assume, it goes to the next boards to see what they say.
All
So if we say no, release your option to buy it, it goes, Concom's got a way in, I think.
Yeah, they are all gonna give their own opinion like we are, and then it goes to the.
The
select.
very last ones, Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And they must,
So, and I put it on the agenda until.
so it's on for next Wednesday.
So, I mean, if they.
Let these people buy the property.
Okay, yeah.
Let's.
I
They were supposed to close like September or something.
Okay, so.
Like it's-
We need to do this.
Yeah, so that's why I made sure everyone was on the same page, because I feel bad.
It is. I made some movies, so we gotta.
I move that we waive the right of first refusal for the property at 2410 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 44 and 47.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
I just want to say there's no reason why we would.
Not.
There's
No,
reason we want this,
No.
so.
absolutely.
And the purchase and sale agreement.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Oh, yes, so just someplace on the bottom, yeah. So we have a few new people applying to be in the chapter. It was like all of a sudden we had 5 new people. It's kind of great, but
Yeah, I saw that too. Somebody was creative.
Right? All right, so I'm sorry, what did I say? I missed that.
we have a few new chapter people applying for chapter.
Okay,
So,
since we're on film, we should let them know that if they're doing that, then we might use their map to check
Well-
their phone.
okay, and. So, here are the maps of the property that Lisa printed out. And their applications. So. This one is forest land to be recorded and we have it to be released. So one. Someone's selling it and they're continuing it in chapter land.
Can I throw a lunch when
Sure.
I see this on the agenda.
Sign chapter land lease.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's E.
no entrance for plan.
Okay, I'm like, what? Oh, you're good.
Nancy Schwenker.
Do that when you're doing stuff.
So these.
So,
Or-
yeah, that one is releasing the lien of the current owner. I think they are,
This is just an ownership thing.
yes, but, and they're gonna continue it in the chapter, so we're gonna release the lien
And then put it back.
and then put it back in another one.
Yeah, for the new lease.
Yeah, to,
Joshua Monson.
yeah. So the map is there, I think their application is there. We tried to have it all. In an orderly fashion.
So while we're talking about that, we will be doing something similar to the Brook Street property.
The solar property?
No, not the solar farm, the land to the west that's landlocked. It's part of the property trust. Grass Profit Family Trust.
That one comes out in August.
Grasshopper is going to purchase that piece of property
Oh,
for the sole.
They pay like
Oh,
whole
they're
market.
cutting enough land so that it's
Same.
open away from so many feet away from where battery storage.
Like that.
Chapter.
Yeah,
And so it's in check.
and you wanna see it cut out.
And agent who's selling it, stir the pot, and the town's gotta do this, and the town's gotta do that. No, he wasn't there for the Zoom meeting, and I said, no, no,
I know,
So-
just.
tell him to sit,
Well, I'm-
we know what we're doing.
This is the line.
We're waiting for affidavit from.
This is just.
that part, because in addition to the.
Right, well, it's
taking it
being
out,
cut out.
and putting it into
That's
the
what's
house. We want an affidavit.
So what I'm saying
Really
is,
know.
I'd like to see.
Solar panels.
Right, and I know, can't guarantee unless we do
Do they
have people
want to do that?
go into their map and see what's there
They
and have
can
them marked out.
This is again if they want.
Right, that's
So
Even that's the only reason they're buying it is it's the only way to get
Let
the
them
batteries
buy it.
under the planning.
Yeah, I mean, we should have it from these people. What?
No, this is not- so what I'm trying to say here, just a conversation with Stephanie, is that this map is literally just a plot plan. And it's just the whole, it's the whole thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, 8 acres are the total and 7 acres are going into.
chapter. So, yeah, there's
So-
no identifying line.
Again, there's no line saying this is what's in chapter, this is what's not in chapter, this is what I'm asking.
How would we get that over?
Is there a house on that 1 acre?
Yes, that's why there's
How would we
an
get that
acre
over?
less.
I mean, I don't even know how you
That's
get
why
that over.
acre supports.
So if you're looking at the 8 acres, how would you get the line on the seven?
So this is exactly what we're dealing with at 1050 Williams. They've got to tell us. Like,
What
we're
part?
waiting to find out what part of this, we need dimensions, if you're working with the building commission. we're gonna figure this out. So in this particular case, we know that there's a residential tax on at least the part where the house is.
Yep.
And the rest of it
Is
is
that
the chapter.
reduced value at a commercial rate?
So it's, there's two tax rates on that property, correct?
The question would be though, for Bill is, how would we get the overlay?
No, I think this, for me, I'm happy with this, if this, you see this red line here.
Yeah, how would you get the
There
red
was a
line?
red line.
You'd have to go in and draw a red line.
That's why we would,
I mean,
Into the
she'd have to, yeah, into the map and draw a red line. So when it prints out, you go, oh, here's the 7, it's in this corner.
so
I'm
what we
saying
would
we should
do,
have, so you need file all this, right? Like, you have a file cabinet
Yeah.
with all the stuff. That's all I would want is something on file, so that at some point in the future, there's any dispute, we can pull out this application out of the file and go, oh, look, here's the map, and here's where they drew.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, it's a physical job. So you have to look at it and say, oh.
well,
this
that is
part of
why
it-
we would have the map there when they file for the application.
Yep.
They should be able to
To
say,
identify
this
this
is-
portion of my.
this is, yeah, I only, like this back portion is, where I
The
put
61.
I do whatever,
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and over here, we need to have this printed out for them, so
So then
that.
at time of application.
Exactly,
So then at the time we submit the 61A, they say,
Exactly.
okay, here's the map of the whole property.
exactly.
This is the 61A section. Right, so then that was.
Exactly.
And part of what I was just saying
Yeah.
is, like, previous conversation we just had.
Yep.
Okay, so now you gotta grow corn.
Yep.
Right, now I see here, this guy, this got a.
So we can look at just a
area.
specific 61A section.
What happens if they're growing a garden in the front yard? Then they say, oh, but all this land here is in chapter, but you're not growing it on the chapter
Yeah,
land, you're growing it on the residential.
So then we'd have to set that up as a precedent. When they, or as a, a procedure, I guess, when they submit, just give us a sketch of where you would grow the 61A stuff.
Yeah, I would assume that they're not gonna grow it on that, I mean, I don't know,
Right.
close to their home when they have all these other acres, but that doesn't mean. I mean, they would still do that first acre, yeah.
If it ever came down to that, I think we have the right to say, we need this surveyor to survey this. You tell us, what is the house lot? And the rest
I-
is.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but if we had to expose.
All I'm
we had to-
saying is,
If it was.
If it through the roads
Yeah,
and they said to the town, oh, you're taxing me too much residential. Cause I'm growing corn right up to, at that point, we'd have to say, you need to have this surveyed and tell us what the house lot is. If you're saying what we're taxing you for the house lot is too much land, we need proof of that.
yeah. If I ever arrived, we probably should do that. But that would have to.
Saying how much is classified as, and usually it's, we take out the 1 acre to support the house. And the
Yeah.
remaining is.
Right.
If there's a house.
That's fair. Okay,
Is
so.
there a better way to do something where we're
Yeah.
all open
Hey,
to
that's right, the work in progress. I think that's a good idea, Bill, to just say, hey, guys, can you just give us when you submit 61A, just give us an idea.
This is your
So
house
that we
lot.
can look at it,
Yeah.
here's where you're gonna be, your 61A land is, so we kind of know, to the best of your ability,
Right,
right? I mean,
Right. I mean-
surveying lines is not necessary.
Yeah, I think that
Give us a good
but a basic
give us a
idea.
good idea, yeah,
Only
to the best of your
because-
ability.
In the future, people will do things, and all of a sudden they're gonna be, building a garage in the area that's supposed to be the 61A or something.
That's
And
fair.
it might not only deals with it. We.
If it's ever-
Yes.
You.
Right. I think the 1 acre thing, your house lot is considered 1 acre. Yeah, but you're taxing them. Tell us where the 1 acre is. We can see the house.
Mhm.
1 acre is standing.
we're still
The
gonna
rest
tax them the
is
1 acre.
You're gonna pay for the
If
1
they're
acre.
Putting their
If you say
garden in there.
less than that, then we need it.
Yeah,
So you're suggesting that we could have default of, we're just gonna deduct 1 acre.
I think it's standard practice.
It is. We already done,
That's been. pretty
we already
standard.
take 1 acre and see that's resident.
Yeah,
So then we don't need a map. If that's the standard.
Well, you need a map for the whole thing.
Well, if you've got, again, so they've got 8 acres, let's say they had 10, and they're only putting 7 in. tell us where on that
Yeah,
10 minutes.
no, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I think I could allow for a no map, just default 1 acre is your house lot.
Like, so, yeah, so for example, they've got 8 acres and you're only putting 7 in. Okay, so 1 acre is.
That's it. You don't have to.
We don't need to know. It's everywhere. but
So this half of the property is.
I got you, yeah.
Half is out.
Then identify. Yeah, identify. Correct.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then that's all right. That's it. That's less than it is. So I think I can accept that.
Yeah.
We'll have a default, no map, 1 acre, and that's it. There's no exceptions. Which it looks like this property falls into. And so I move that we release the 61A on 1689 Portland Street, map 11, lot 40, from Charles and Kelly Osier. And we put the same property on for Joshua Monson and Samantha Hayes.
Second.
Was long, sorry.
Motion
that's
made.
good.
All, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Stephanie, question, if I owned, all right, so I have a 20 acre plan. And I still have a 1 house lot, you know, the lawn and all that good stuff. And the rest of it is in wild and whatever you call it. Is there a different tax rate from agricultural?
Yes.
Oh, it
I
is.
don't know what it does offhand, but,
It's probably lesser, because there's no income on it, unless and I'm not talking a tree farm where I'm actually.
right, not the forestry.
I'm just curious. But every year I fill out a form also for that, correct?
Yes. Because we have, because we have continuous non-productive land, and you can have land that you don't do anything. So this really is like a. If they say, you know, we say that we expect there was, you know, vegetables. And then we see, you know, half of it's woods, they might very well have on here, non-productive. So they're still classifying it. Correctly, because not all of it could be farmed. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say they have an out, but they have a lot they can do on these.
So you got a lot of flexibility.
I hate to make this move longer, but I'm just curious. So you're talking about, you know, you have to actively farm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, if I'm wrong, that, you know, I've got 10 acres that I put into Chaplain. As long as I have a patch of corn that makes $500, that covers the whole 10 acres. I don't have to farm the entire 10 acres.
No, I think you have to generate $500 in
That 10 acres,
some sales of some sort.
but I don't have to be.
Yeah,
Farming
right to
that
the,
entire-
you do 9 acres, you probably find.
No, I'm saying I'm taking an extreme example. I've got a 10 by 10 patch that I grow the most amazing
Yeah,
corn.
interesting. That brings up a big interesting question.
I think
Now-
you have an acre, say, of that patch, say that patch is an acre, or I don't know.
Out
Whatever.
of the 10, 1 acre is
You
fine.
would, you'd have to say cropland pasture, permanent pasture, so you would, if you're classifying 10 acres, you still have to account
The other 9.
the other 9 that you're not.
Right.
So I just want to be clear. So you're saying that this tract of land must be farmed.
Well,
It's hard,
so
no, that-
10, you got 10 acres.
Yeah.
You're growing corn in 1 acre. What she's saying is you also have to identify what the other 9 acres you're doing. And that you might could,
Right, woods.
now, you might be just moving that 1 acre around, right? Because you don't farm in the same spot every year. So you want to let the nutrients grow, and you maybe fertilize that, and you put stuff in there. So you might move that 1 acre over this acre, or to whatever it is. You have to identify what the other ones are.
But my question, like the one we just signed,
Yeah.
we said default, 1 acre for the house. And the other 7 acres is farmland, or is that an open space?
61A.
So agriculture. yeah.
So from what you're describing, it sounds to me, I see woods in that picture.
Mhm.
I don't see any farmland.
So there's different other categories here, still for agricultural. There's a contiguous non-productive land. So.
Is that on that one we just signed?
Yes, this is like a standard.
Where's the one you just?
Oh, down there.
It said. under in that section.
But Stephanie, is it possible that I own the 10 acres? So 1 acre is my house lot. 1 acre is in produce, whatever it is, vegetables, corn, whatever. The rest of it is woods. Would I potentially have 3 different tax rates? Based on the acreage, the house lot, the agricultural, and then the wood lot, that's just wild and whatever.
You would have different rates if you went from corn and then you would do it squash, or there's different rates for different.
All right, but I'm just saying, every year I plant vegetables on 1 acre and I get more than $500. So now I've got 8 acres, because I got a 1 acre house lot, I got 1 acre that raises money, I mean, whatever I.
I wish Lisa was here, because she's the one who knows, she knows everything about
The rest is solar, so
Sorry, I may interrupt you. This, just sign is not agricultural. It's open space recreation.
Oh,
So
sorry.
so it's not A.
That one was, you can go A to B
Oh, all right.
without a rollback,
Without a
as long as it stays within the chapter.
So they're saying here, check that
I
out.
don't even.
It says the names of files, yes, and saying hiking, target.
Okay,
Yeah,
So
so,
this is not what,
so that one's
This is-
fine,
this is
either
not-
way, because,
Income generating for farming.
yeah, I'm talking about the income generated.
Oh,
right, so
Really
is that B in staying B, or is it A?
going to be.
Is the release on an A or a B?
So. This just says,
But yeah.
no, right there, and just say.
Okay, so those, so that, they did it right. They, it was B to begin with, and it stayed.
Okay.
So,
I didn't.
I think we should charity formal, but please make sure the minutes reflect that we all noticed that this was.
Yes.
Recreational.
Everyone signs.
So
Everybody's
I'm
fine.
still stuck on that question.
We'll have to dig into it.
It's
And we'll have to ask
agriculture.
Lisa probably knows the answer to that.
Lisa.
So let's
knows
ask Lisa
everything.
about that when we get a chance.
She
So
is the chapter woman. She is.
that's a good idea.
So I think there's, I have 1 of 2 possibilities. Either it all needs to be
Fine.
agricultural farm,
Yeah.
period, and if it's not, you're in trouble. Or you can just have a token, whatever, as long as it produces $500. I think that the latter is true. I don't think.
Probably,
Yeah.
and just tell them you're not doing all 10, maybe some of it is B
Right.
as well, because if it's, I mean, I don't know, you're right, so we're like kind of learning as we go here. So I think to identify that's part of the point, but I'm okay with that.
At the next meeting, can we have Lisa come in just for a brief,
Oh, that would be one.
just a brief,
Yes, let's give you anything on chapter.
just to answer,
Great.
clear up some things. Not only that, it would be beneficial for the people who watch this to know
Who else confused
what
about
comes
that?
out of it. Yes. Just a thought.
That's a good idea.
You're in the impression somebody watches this.
All the people in the
Chat
chat.
on record.
All the people in the chat.
All the people in chat.
So this is a new one. So it shows the map. And that is the deed. And if you look at this. This is an A. So cropland pasture. 14.44. And then 5 are in wetlands. So as long as you have the right amount of acreage. Because we're classifying. Totally come over right now, like I signed this. So I should-
You can have it here. Can I see that? while you're-
Yeah, please do. I'm gonna tell you.
How many more do we have there?
What?
How many more are there? For us to
There,
sign the chapter stuff.
there are like 8 of these things.
Okay. Can we get some clarification?
Yeah.
Because it should be.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, by the way, I should have probably mentioned this in the beginning, but I didn't. That this meeting being audio and video recorded for playback on YouTube and the town website. In full disclosure.
Okay.
Just cover my baby.
Where's that page? Which is that? Oh.
Forward chapter. There are meetings since there's so many. You could over here now. All right, thank you. Okay, all right, bye. That's it.
Just looking at
It's hard to make one. Did I steal it out of here? Oh, what's hard on this? This one not yet.
You know, the thing that with all the training we take as assessors. Issues like this come up that you never really get into when you're doing the training, or it's just touched on so lightly, you don't get conditional cases, so to speak. So that there's a certain amount of OJT in this job.
That's good. I don't know. Said one, no, even though that is also it.
Gee, this is the exact same question we just. I'm confused now.
This is remaining, the lien has to be released to get these out, and then it's going right back in. So this is the Dayton part.
So what we signed was for the entire,
We did our first right of refusal.
the first round of it.
Yeah, so this one will actually be.
Now changing the status.
Maybe it's this. Where did that go? I think it was there.
Came by us, went back to you.
Yeah,
It's gotta be in-
Yes, and it was in order.
yeah, I know.
It was a green folder, I think, or was it the blue folder?
It was, I swear, when I was looking at Todd. This one. No, it's not. Yeah, someplace else.
So this is interesting in that. So I believe this is saying this is 14 acres.
Yeah.
And it says remaining chapter removed from chapter.
Mhm.
And yet, the application here.
It was Todd, but it was.
The one who's looking for that, if a person owes taxes on chapter land, are they prohibited anything to it until they pay their taxes? Do we have that rule about?
You're selling it? You can sell the used proceeds.
I don't,
You sell the used proceeds back.
I don't think. I don't know.
Fast.
She ran, come on, let's.
I do. That is that.
I would say lots of questions.
Oh, good. Lots of questions.
Because none of the numbers match on that one. So,
All right.
so our big,
No, go ahead.
so our biggest question is talking about like agricultural things that put into agricultural use is the one. If I put 10 acres into chapter, am I required to farm that entire 10 acres?
If you put 10 acres into chapter, you have to do something with it. You can put 10 acres into chapter and have 5 contiguous non-productive. You can have up to 50% non-productive land in chapter.
That's the answer.
So we keep 1 acre out of 10 and have 9.
No, but when I started, that's what's happening.
Okay,
I'm farming 2 acres and I have 35 in non-productive.
Right. okay, that's kind of what we were getting. We weren't sure what that rule was.
50%.
Okay. 50% has to be used. That's all.
So my question is, 10 acres that I own. I've got a house in it, so 1 acre, I'm gonna say 1 acre is my house. The remaining 9, 4.5 acres is the max I could do that, I gotta do something with.
5. Minimum of 5.
The house, it's not what's left. It's, I see what you mean.
So if I have 10 acres.
Yep.
without a dwelling.
With, oh, I'm like,
No,
no, 10 acres includes. I said, 10 acres is my house lot.
Yeah, if I have 10 acres with a house. So I take out 1 acre for the house. Now I have 9 acres.
Yeah.
I have to farm at least 5.
The half of the total.
No, we're just, this is number 5.
Then that would be 4.5.
So
Oh, the whole 10 is in chapter,
the whole,
but you know,
No, no.
no, I have 10 acres.
then
Take out 1 acre for the house. 9 acres,
9 acres, you can only put in 9 acres and it's 61 acres.
correct, but the 50% rule.
Goes
doesn't
for the whole
apply
town.
to that,
Okay,
because you have to have 5 acres. To
A
be
minimum
exempt.
5, okay, all right.
Right, so let's say it's 20, so I got 20-acre property. And I've got 1 acre carved out from my house, I've got 19 acres in chapter,
Mhm.
now it's 9.5,
Yes.
correct?
Okay,
So 50% minimum of
50% of what's in the chapter,
minimum.
Minimum of 5.
minimum 5, right? So you got 7 acres, you can't do it.
Well, you can do it, you
Yeah.
just have to do 5 acres. If you get 7 acres,
Well,
one.
I see minimum 5 to win, I see, so then you 2.5, all right, so if you did 5, 2.5 has to be fine. So you can,
No, 5 is the minimum.
5 is the minimum to 5, so if I have 6 acres, take 1 out for the house.
Yeah.
I can farm the 5, I
like,
can't have any non-productive.
okay, it has to be all 5, right, okay.
So if you have a 6 acre
Minimum
lot,
5,
you gotta do it.
50% or minimum of 5,
If you have a 6 acre lot, you have to do a wall to wall point.
yes,
There's no.
pretty much to the edge, yeah, to the property boundaries.
all right, so in that example, I have a 6 acre lot and I'm 1 acre is my house lot. The remaining 5, can that be in a special class called non-productive?
No.
No? Okay,
You have to farm 5 acres. Now, if you got 50, you can farm 10, put 10 in non-productive, but you can't put 40 in non-productive. You can only have a
Now it's a 50%.
50% rule.
Right.
But you have to take your 5 out first.
okay.
So like you said, if you got 6 acres, take 1 out for the house, you have got to farm wall to wall.
Go back to your 50 acres. That example, 50 acres, you pull 1 out for the house, you got 49 left. You have to farm a minimum of 24.5 acres there, and 24.5 can be non-productive. Can be.
Can,
Right.
doesn't have to be, and most people aren't 50%. Most people are not 50% non-productive, because if it's a real farm, they're gonna farm as much as they can.
Yeah, farm, yeah.
But 99% of all lots that size are going to have some kind of topography, wetland,
Yeah.
some
Okay,
reason
so
why.
there's some flexibility that you can't farm through wetlands. And on 50 acres, anywhere around here, generally you can have
You can have some,
unfarmable,
Easy.
unfarmable, right?
yes,
In a case like that, would there be 3 different tax rates applied? One for my house lot, one
correct,
for my farm, and one for that lawn?
correct. Each crop is a different rate. So if I have 2 acres of vegetables, that's at 1 rate. If I have 5 acres of tillable crop, that's a different rate. Then I have my non-productive, that's a different rate. Then I have my house, that's another rate.
Do they identify each one of those on the application?
Yes,
They say, I'm gonna do squash, I'm gonna do corn.
well, they don't have to, if it's a vegetable, it's a vegetable.
Okay.
So, and if it's cranberries, it's cranberries. If it's
Right.
Okay,
hay, it's tillable crop.
oh,
And then you have pasture, a non-tillable pasture land. All of those are different rates. Vegetable to vegetable, but
Now, with pasture land, you must have to have something that grazes on it.
yes,
So you also have to have a couple of goats or something.
yes, but you're not. Chapter land is on the land
Right.
alone, not on what you grow on it, not what grazes
Yeah,
on
I
it.
think that's. Okay,
okay, so when we set a tax rate. The tax rates, residential, commercial, okay? And in this scenario. There are 3 different taxable rates to use. So we know the house is going to be taxed at the residential rate.
Correct.
How do you determine the rates for the farmland? And then that swamp.
Farmland Advisory Committee puts out the rates every year. April, May, somewhere in there. So every year I go on that, print out the new rates. Depending on what the crops are doing, cranberries are down, cranberries are skyrocketing. You know, hay is down, hay is up, corn, whatever it is. A lot of them change a little bit. This past year, it was a huge increase. In the prior 2 years, nothing changed at all, which is, I've never seen that happen.
So when we set a tax rate, per se, other than the residential and commercial, those other rates that you're describing, you get those from a central bureau agency?
Yes, Farmland Advisory Committee.
And do they set the rate for the swamp that I own?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah, I already brought it home.
Just ballpark, what would the residential, what roughly, what is the residential, excuse me, what is the swamp rate compared to my residential? Is it like 25% of residential or if residential?
So when they set their, Farmland Advisory Committee sets their rates. Say, for example, vegetables are at $179 per acre. Swampland could be $35 per acre.
That's a valuation? Okay,
Yes,
and so if it's valued at 35 acres and I own 10 acres, I get a valuation of $350.
yes,
And then what would the rate be?
commercial rate.
Oh, okay.
So
The
it's a
town's
lower value, the town commercial.
Oh, okay. So it's not that they set the tax rate, they
They set the
determine
value.
valuation.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't realize there was another building law out there somewhere.
So who,
Through the Department of
who
Revenue,
sets rates with farmland? What was it, farmland?
Farmland Advisory Committee,
Who sets, who determines what we charge our farmers?
Farmland Advisory Committee.
Why would we go up on those taxes when
Because sometimes,
food costs are already through the roof?
well,
Now they're gonna have to go up even more.
because they're not setting a tax rate on the food, they're setting a tax rate on the land.
I know that. But what I'm saying
So
is,
if,
if the
if,
farmer's land goes up tax rate wise, then our food costs continue to rise.
but if cranberries have 2 years of bad crop, they're gonna drop the value on it because you're not getting the cranberries that you should be. Now, if you have a couple of really good years of cranberry and the value goes up, then the land rate goes up as well.
So they base it on the profitability of the crop.
Correct.
And they do it every year.
And they do it every year.
So now why, so we've seen this got outside the circle a bit, but I guess if you just said that the tax rate went up this year, but hadn't.
The value, not
The
the
values,
tax.
well, the values went up.
Yeah.
So that means that their profits are up, which means they're gonna increase the value of that profit.
Well, not all the values change dramatically. Some of them will go from $170 and then the following year they'll go to $180. It's not a significant increase.
Okay.
Right now, the one that did go up the most this past year was forestry. And I'm saying it went up, so, okay, it's 190, I'm making up numbers, but
Sure.
$190 per acre. As opposed to someone that's not in chapter land, they're paying $5,000 of value. But again, with that, it comes, can't do anything else with your land, and if you do, you get penalized for it, and so there's, obviously the town has right of first refusal, so it's not, oh, I'm gonna go in chapter land and save money, you commit. Absolutely commit.
So this farm bureau, is that across the state of Massachusetts or is it in regions?
No, it's through the Department of Revenue.
Are there regions? In other words,
No.
are people in the Berkshires getting a better deal on forestry and land than people in some.
The only one that has different rates is forestry. It's like east of the Connecticut River or west of the Connecticut River have different rates only for forestry. All the other ones, one rate, I say one rate, they have, low, medium, high. Every town I know, we always just use the medium. Because who am I to determine whether or not your hay crop is better than the guy next down the street? We just use average, I call average for everyone.
So somebody in the Berkshires growing hay and somebody in Middleborough growing hay. theoretically, the property value is the same.
The same rate, yes.
All right, okay.
Well, this was terribly educational.
Yeah, I never heard
This is
of it.
wonderful.
But they don't tell you.
This is great.
Can I just show?
Yeah,
Can I-
So I can't show all three of you at once, so kind of dig in here. So this is a chapter land property. These are suppressed. This is what it, the top two lines are what it would be without chapter. So it's 1 acre. Thank you. 1 acre for the house. And that is the residual. 19.25. Now we have those suppressed, which tells the computer system, ignore that. So now we're gonna come down here. There's our 1 acre for the house. Same, it's not suppressed. There's a 1 acre for 10 acres of whatever crop this is,
that's the value of it.
and that's the value. And then 9.25, that's 720 is your contiguous non-productive, and there's your value at 9.25 acres. That's
Is that the total value or you multiply by 9?
no, that's the total value.
Oh, okay. So that might be my smaller.
That's your swamp, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So each crop, each non-productive, every different category is a different line item. And some people can have 4 or 5 lines.
Right. So if I may skip it a little bit, so what I'm getting out of this is the factor 61. That'll be like
Yes,
real farm.
yes.
This is not like. Oh,
Yes. I did have a gentleman come in a couple years ago and with that same mentality, okay, I want to save money, so I'm gonna go into that. But okay, what are you doing now? You have to be in for 2 years before you qualify. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna start and then 2 years I'm gonna, be in chapter. So what's my best crop? I said, what do you want to grow? I said, you want to do hay? You want to do vegetables? You want to have a farm stand? You want to sell egg? I mean, you tell me. I mean, not like somebody's got to start digging trenches growing cranberries if they don't know how to grow cranberries. So he wanted to see the farmland advisory board's rates, and I showed him. He's like, okay, I think I'll grow Christmas trees. And I said to him, it's not going to work. You have to want to do farming, you have to want to maintain your crops, because if you don't, you're not doing your job, you're not showing that you have income from these crops, you're not going to maintain them, and you're not going to continue, and it's going to cost you more money in a few years, because you're going to have to come out.
So he has to farm it for 2 years to be qualified for chapter. So he's paying residential rate for 3 years prior to going in.
Correct. It's not
Does that
technically.
get
2 years.
rolled back somehow? Like he said, okay, well, now we'll give you credit for 2 years, you pay residential on that.
No, it's
So
not
you're
technically,
basically coughing up a whole bunch of money up front. That's your investment in the property.
it's not,
And then we'll give you a break later.
yeah, no. It's not technically 2 years, because your application has to be in by October 1st to qualify for the next fiscal year, which we're gonna show until January.
I see.
So 1 year after your application, you're already technically in.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
So it is 2 years, but 1 year your
It
application.
takes 2 years, but really. it's-
Yes. But
So then what's the proof? What's your proof of income? They have to show you a tax return?
they have to show, it depends on the town and the board of assessors. Now, in Berkeley, you write down your figure that you collected
10 grand.
under the pains and penalties of perjury, and the board accepts that as
Your word.
the
So
word.
it's an honor system at this point.
Now, I also have chapter land in Lakeville. In Lakeville, they want my taxes, my farm taxes,
Proof.
showing the income and loss. And if you don't have that, you don't file taxes, then they want to see a physical list of your inventory of what you sold by the month, by the, quarter. That's what you have to provide to them. And if you don't provide that to them, they will deny you because
basically
they
need a
try to
profit-
deny
So basically, you
you.
need a profit and loss statement in lieu of your tax return showing that you filed that on your tax return.
You don't have to have a profit and loss statement. You have to have an inventory of sales. Because you don't necessarily have to make a profit on land. You have to
Then the
make,
question comes up, okay, so you just gave me this list, but I don't see it on the tax return.
Some people don't, if you only have a 5-6 acre farm.
Right.
And you're growing vegetables and you got a little farm stand up front, you know, most people don't file taxes.
I got you. Okay.
Now, do you have to, supply a map to Lakeville showing?
No,
We've gone.
We were just
over
talking
the
about
maps.
And can you fill out,
I have gone to several webinars or seminars on chapter, because it's my thing. Some towns do send a map along with it, and they ask them to code the map, of what you're growing, and I think that's a phenomenal
And
idea.
that's what I told him.
Because
I
I-
got more into chapter than I can handle.
Yes, because I've gone on the near map system, and I know people say, oh, I'm growing, 10 acres of corn, and I go on there and it's pine trees and oak trees, and you can't grow corn under trees, so I got, Lakeville sends a letter that's a little bit nasty, because
we're
they're,
being recorded, by the way.
I know,
That's-
it is.
That's not-
But the letter's a little bit nasty, because that's exactly what's happening. People are getting the benefit of farm rates
Rates. And not-
without
right.
doing the job.
Right.
So the Board of Assessors and the Assessors Office have the right to do inspections on any farmland, and that's why we're using near maps. And I've been looking at them, but we haven't had a policy in.
And we were just
order
talking
yet.
about that, by the way. So we're coming.
Yeah,
This is what we're talking about.
yeah.
This is exactly.
Because I do farm mine, and I know other people that say they have, oh, I'm growing an acre of hops and an acre of peppers, and I know where they live, and I've driven by them, they've got like 6 hop plants, it's not an acre, I don't care how you measure it, that's not an acre. So I do think it's a good idea, now that we have near maps, it's a lot easier, and they're saying, oh, I'm farming 20 acres, but then you go on near maps, and they've got
They don't have 20. And it's-
they have 20 acres, but they're not growing hay on 20 acres, because they got 15 paddocks, they got a huge barn, they got a parking lot, they're doing horse training or whatever, which is fine, that's recreation. But they're not doing 20 acres of hay like you're saying.
Right.
So those are the things that I think need to be.
And really, it's about balancing it out so that proper taxes are collected.
Correct.
And the use of the land.
Correct.
So getting back to what I was my question, trying to ask, so clearly 61 eggs and you have to be a farmer. This isn't like growing a garden and obviously you don't have to pay taxes on this land. Now, what about 61B? Recreation.
That'll be a recreation.
No, you don't really, and I talk to people, I said, you got 20 acres and you don't do anything with it, but maybe you go for a walk or ride your horse or. I said, you can walk through there one day, see a bird, a snake, a frog, it doesn't matter, that's recreation, open space, you don't even have to see bird, you can just go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's just preservation of land is what they're trying to do.
So what I'm getting at is that we should be, say, like the guy that came to you and said, so I wanted to work.
Yeah,
You should perhaps recommend 61B instead of 61A. We can't say that you set aside this land, you're not going to develop it, so you can better price on it.
Mhm.
But that's 60.
correct,
It's not 61A.
correct.
Yeah, so that's the proper.
And I think that's maybe something we should be. Is there a significant difference between the 61A and the 61B?
Yes. Yes, 61B is 25%,
Of the
Yeah.
residential value.
yes.
So you just said
But then A.
your number stuck in my head. You said $5,000 an acre for residential. Is that about right?
For
Full rate.
Full
that one, not your primary
Yeah,
one.
I'm talking about
Yes,
additional acres added onto the property.
That's us too.
That's $5,000 per acre. So I'm saying if you put it into 61B, it's
25%.
which is $12.50.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying? So now that value goes from 5,000 to $12.50. But if I were to classify it as 61A, it might be like $300.
correct.
There's a big difference in.
Yeah, I think I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think the 61B is a fair.
That's fair. If you're not in the home,
Yeah, you're not-
I'm looking at it, hey, listen, so now we're gonna have a way to enforce.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get away with not farming. That really is for an active
You're not
farmer.
gonna farm.
You can't just leave it that way. Go to 61B.
And
And we have done that.
Yeah.
on multiple occasions,
Yes.
especially with someone that has been farming it for 50 years and they just can't anymore. So any of the first recommendation would be
Recreation,
lease it,
yeah.
because they still want to maintain their fields, and if
Sure.
you don't do anything within 2 years.
And
they
it
will have
has
some-
some income.
Yes,
Yeah.
so you can lease it and stay in there, you don't even have to farm it, you can have the other guy farm it, as long as he signs your application.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
fine.
Right, okay.
If not, then the 61B would be the next recommendation for that person, because they just, they just can't farm it anymore.
Right.
So
Then it be as a right.
we don't want to go back into the residential tax rate.
Then we got to sell it and go. Right, so, and we don't want that either. So what about the leasing? Now, if I'm leasing, I have 50 acres, I can't farm it anymore, and I lease it to somebody, I give them a good rate, but they don't farm it.
Well, then it goes back on
Then it does, okay.
the owner.
So we are still gonna check that, right? Then it's just off and they say, well, I lease it, I can't control what.
Yeah, no, they have to have the leasee sign the application.
Say, saying you are gonna farm it and. you're gonna have to farm it. But ultimately, as a property owner, you're responsible for what your lease is doing.
Yes.
Okay.
And usually they get, I don't know, they're making hay on it, they get $10 a day, like you.
Yeah.
The other person,
$2, right?
$1, $2, I don't even know,
Yeah, I
but
got you.
something out of that for the use of the.
Is there a minimum number of acres that can go into recreation? Like the 5 acre thing you talked about for farming?
Same, minimum of 5 acres.
So chapter land is minimum. Yeah, okay.
Oh, chapter land, no matter what I'm gonna, no matter the chapter A, B, or whatever, it's gotta be a minimum of 5.
Minimum A or B, it's, yes,
Okay, all right,
minimum of 5 designated.
okay.
And some people say, well, I got 5.5 and only take out half of my house. No, you got an acre for the house, so 5 acres have been designated to farm.
Okay. So a person who bought 5 acres cannot put the whole 5 or 4 into that. No,
Because you don't
they
have,
bought 6 acres.
yes,
The house lot, they could say, hey, those woods out there, gonna, I understand.
So just out of curiosity, if I had a 5.5.
can't do it, because you got 4.5 left.
A half acre, can I actually say this is like half acre and this is 5 acres? So actually it's a minimum of 6.
Minimum of 1 acre for the house, yes.
So you start with 6, basically.
Well, you can buy a piece of land with 5 acres.
If there's no house on it,
Farm it, but don't put a house on it.
don't put a house, on it. Right?
In the case of the areas of town where 1 acre lots are not required because of public water and sewer. It still doesn't matter, the law says it must be a minimum of 5. Okay, that's good to know.
Interesting. Wow, super, thank you. That's very.
Forestry.
Very important.
There is one in here that actually has to come out because it's contiguous land. And then it's also in the COVID. And that individual is selling that. Selling that one piece, but it's not enough to maintain chapter, so let's come out. Yes, that has to come out, and she's thinking about subdividing and giving that person a little bit more land to keep it chapter. But then she'd have to go the whole planning and zoning. And permission and all that,
Yeah,
and
we already signed that one now.
That would be approved with it, so the person right.
That was very appealing, right? Okay.
So, oh, I was just gonna ask, now that we're educated, do we need a motion or something to just, say that we're gonna start having this policy?
I think we should discuss what the policy should be first and then have a motion.
So I would suggest, as we've discussed, I don't think there's anything to be done for the system, it's open space. But the 61A, we have said that we're going to notify people. We should probably send a letter to people.
We should come up with a letter, we'll formulate a letter.
In 61A already,
Mhm.
informing them that we are going to be enforcing 61A.
Guidelines, yep.
And maybe write down exactly what she just said, you need to have 50% of your 61A.
Maybe we can have Lisa just quote what it is and tell them what the rules.
I don't want to be like quote regulations because they tend to be written.
If
poorly.
we give them a homework assignment, put together a procedure that basically, without minute details,
How would you best?
talks about the 5 acre requirement or chapter. Just outline a procedure.
Correct.
You draft it and submit it back to us, so we can discuss this and eventually adopt it as a procedure.
Basically, a letter that clarifies to the property owner what the expectation is.
What the expectations are, and we are going to be
Enforce that.
surveilling and enforcing. this.
Correct.
And we need to start surveilling and enforcing it. And we have to have a policy of what's gonna happen when you find somebody that said, I'm farming 5 acres here and they've got a garden patch.
Okay.
I do send a letter with each application.
Oh, you do?
I do, every year. So here is your chapter land application, please make sure you sign the application and the rights and obligation, and then return it to our office by
That's
October
literally
1st.
in that letter?
Yes, and
What they signed, specified.
Oh, so we're already doing it. So we're already telling them, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Now we're gonna tell them we're gonna enforce.
And then I say, make sure that your crops match, as you can see in their application, I say, okay, you have sort of X amount of acres, this is what's in chapter land.
Okay.
So when you return your application, make sure that your acreage over here that you're saying you're growing matches your actual chapter land.
Okay, so we're already doing that. See, we were ahead of ourselves.
Yes, and everyone, the new people that have been coming in, she has been saying that by signing this, we have the right to inspect, right? Is that, does it say it on,
Okay.
can you say sign? That we have a right to,
It's in, I believe it's in the rights and obligations and in the chapter land laws itself, but obviously if you're saying you're doing this,
Then we have a right to.
we have the right to inspect, of course.
Alright, so we're already doing that. So then,
Can I ask that you?
so we can look at.
Because
we have some here with the ones that.
These, all of this came up because, first of all, what I had said was the training we take as assessors that we required to take. Although we just touched the surface about the surface of chapter land, all of this stuff is not brought to our attention. We don't know all this stuff. So as we're going through these things and come up with questions, it's like, well, do we do that? Do we know the fact? So that obviously the people that work with this day to day, day in and day out, know all this. But we're the ones that have to approve it, and we'll get it right on the sand. You don't know.
what are we approving here?
Yeah.
Well, know that if I have a question, I would write a note like, I don't think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing here. And I would let the board know that that needs to be.
Addressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
That's
what
fair.
I'm saying, we need to then have a policy. But it sounds like you already have.
Yeah, it sounds like you
Step
got a
one.
procedure of letting them know.
Step 2, we need to actually do the surveillance
Correct.
and we need to know what do we do when we find somebody that is not doing what we're supposed
Call them into a meeting and
Say, what's up?
to call them to this meeting.
absolutely.
Yes, okay. We call them right
And
here.
say,
So
you
that,
either need to start doing the farming or change the status.
yes, because you can deny their application.
But what if we've already approved their application?
Well, then-
With the approval.
When it comes up for next year, well, it's more of a heads up, right? So if we've approved it, because we're just kind of starting to do the enforcement. If we've already approved it and we didn't realize they weren't farming, but now we realize 6 months in that they're farming, well, they still have a right to the end of the year to
Till
get
the next,
fee,
yes,
right, to the next application.
correct.
So that if we get the next application and she looked and she goes, look, we told them 6 months ago they should be farming this because they weren't, and they're still not.
So we give them a grace period.
Yeah, so there's grace period, that makes sense.
I don't think so under the law. If you find that if we approve something based on the information submitted, and somewhere in the course of that time period, we find out that is not what's happening, you have violated the law because you signed that under oath. There's penalties for perjury.
But until you get the application the following year, when they say I made X amount of dollars last year,
Right.
that's when you can question it, because just because I'm not farming in May, I might sell
That's correct.
fall flowers
That's
or.
what we want. My point is, if the answer is, well, no, I really didn't do that. Under the penalties of perjury, there is action that can be taken, because it's tax fraud.
Right, but so if you find out right now that somebody has not from this past year. And now I get your application for next year and it says I need $0. That's when you can deny the application and force them to change or do something.
Right.
Once it has been approved, they have a year
1 year to do it.
to do it, to get it done. Maybe I only went
So it's the one of the challenges. And to be fair to them, since this hasn't really been enforced historically,
correct.
we give them a little bit of flexibility and say, listen, you know, we got this on this application and you haven't farmed it yet. So when it comes up for renewal, you might get denied because you got no income.
Yeah, and I make sure, I mean, they do sign their rights and obligations every year. It's
Okay.
all in here.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's
Fair
all in the rights and obligations. If they don't send this picture back saying, I understand my rights and obligations, they get this portion back.
Right.
With a letter that says your application is incomplete.
Gotcha.
And you need to send everything back before October 1st. I mean, I make it very clear.
Okay.
That there are rules, and if they don't have it in by October 1st, and we did have a gentleman that brought it in late, he knew, missed the deadline.
Yeah,
See you next year. Sorry, yeah,
there's really not a lot of flexibility and that's not a indictment.
there's
That's a
there's
state-
no plus.
that's a state.
state.
Right, so that's not on us.
No,
Okay, so then as we go through these applications, we gotta see if there's not a zero there for income for the past year.
Well, actually, before they come to us,
Unless
that's
it's
what they've done in
recreation.
the office.
Most of these are new.
yeah, a lot, most of those.
All right, so there's no generation.
Nothing's gonna come to us that doesn't meet requirements. is what I'm
So
saying.
it doesn't go for our.
Hey, you're gonna tell them, hey, you got a zero here, I'm not even gonna give this to my boy. Right, okay, so we, yeah.
I stand at the counter with them and I go crop by crop,
Okay,
by crop.
okay, so we're not seeing stuff that we have to catch, you've already caught it.
Yes,
Okay, and if there's an issue, then you bring it to us.
Correct.
We bring them in and we say, hey, what's going on?
yes, the biggest thing that I wanted to try to get done this year is utilizing the near map. We're paying for it, let's use it.
Yes.
Let's send a map like I have printed with these applications and say, you need to mark out what your farm.
So,
So I'm looking at this, rights applications. And I don't see in here where it says, right, I do not see anything here that says that we have the right to inspect. Something.
You sign them to have a reduced value in their taxes. You have a right to inspect any property.
But it's not explicit. I would like it to be explicitly known to anybody that's going into chapter land that they are in turn giving us permission to basically see that.
they probably, yeah, so what she's saying, they kind of know we have a right to go in that property, you're saying, just,
We may have a
let's
legal-
put it on that paper,
We may have a legal right.
Correct.
Disputing. What I'm saying is that.
let's
people
tell them.
should know that.
Is that a form or is that a state form?
That's a state form, but I can add that to the cover letter.
That'd be great,
Yes.
yep, do that.
Absolutely.
And let's make it perfectly clear and transparent. So there's no questions.
And I would like
So,
the board permission to say, the Board of Assessors are going to start inspecting,
so that's-
not say we may, I would say they're going to.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Perfect.
And that's where I was, to circle back to what I was saying, is that if you haven't told people this,
Let's tell them.
then we should send a letter to everybody that's in chapter to let them know.
Yeah.
This, that we're going to
Rather than
start.
say we are going, I think we should
We will
vote
be
to set
setting
an
it.
effective such and such a date. The Board of Assessors will, that way, in every letter, it can say. The Board of Assessors, effective this date, henceforth, the Board of Assessors will verify. However, it can be worded, but I think we need to vote to do it and set it, it's gonna start.
Yeah.
All right,
So when would you propose? So January 1st thing or today? What-
As of the application, which is as of now. Right, because these are all new applications.
These are all new applications.
And some people have already, will have to refile every year, right? So by October 1, they're all due. So we're only in the third week of October. Let's let them all know that we're starting on November 1. You know, like November 1, from November 1 to the application date of next year, we are gonna start to check this.
so Lisa. We'll come up with a date, November, effective November 1st, the Board of Assessors will verify. chapter land. Using all legal means necessary.
We can tell them how to use near map.
That doesn't mean something to a lot of people. But what is that?
Just say aerial surveillance or something.
No, I like all legal means.
All legal means, that's fine. That's fine, all legal means is good.
But I want people to know.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's a guy and this guy that's watching.
Yeah, so,
People know that everywhere there's a camera watching them.
that's good. Yeah, but let's make it clear for them. Yeah, okay. So this kind of brings up another point. So from your chair, you look at near map and you're looking at the 61A. You've got a big barn in the middle of that field. That might not have been there. What's the, is there some sort of obligation there on your part to say that didn't, that's not supposed to be there?
For example,
Like it
you
shows up.
notify the building commissioner. Hey, Jim,
Yeah, is there an obligation? If there isn't, that's fine. But if there is, do we know that?
We don't have an obligation to notify the inspection department, but that's the first thing I would do, is go to the inspection department and say, hey, I need to file on this because I noticed it's a huge barn here that wasn't here last time I looked. Is there a building permit? Is there not a building permit? If there's not a building permit, that's on them, that's not on us, we've been
Right.
taxing for it anyway.
Just curious.
Yeah, and then that land, if you will, ends up being
Not farmed.
not farmed and taxed at a commercial rate.
but the trigger for the enforcement in this example is the building department. What you
Yes.
said,
Not the assessment department.
no, because first of all, if it comes back, yeah, there was a building permit, well, then it comes back to us to say, well, we need that info, we never got it. Or, no, there was no building permit, whoa, that's building department enforcement, we just sit back and wait. And when they get it straightened out,
Then we just.
then
have
we
to
get
take
the
it to
records and can do what we have to do through the board of assessors. But if something is built without a permit, again, that's the building department enforcement area.
Right, so I'm not enforcing it, but we're taxing them, whether they got a permit is irrelevant in the assessor's office.
But what I'm saying to you is this example, it's like a mushroom that popped up, nobody knew about it, but if you were trying to look at chapter land, there it is, and you check the records and say, I don't know where that came from. You notify building. If building says there was a permit, all right, we need that,
Yeah,
all right. No, we have no record of that. Before we act immediately, that's an enforcement issue with building. They've got to enforce whatever. There's probably fines and other things involved, and then they gotta, when they get it straightened out, then they gotta come to us and say, this is the situation with that property, so this, then you can pick it up from there.
No, I don't think what she said, the way I understood this was, and correct me if I'm wrong. We see a building on there, and if we're not already taxing them on it, we start to tax them on it,
immediately.
regardless of whether they pull the permit or not,
Based on what?
based on the fact it's there.
No, what's the valuation?
It depends on what the measurement is.
My point is. Issues the permit, it describes exactly what it is. So there has to be interaction between the assessors and the building
I
department.
would notify the building department that all of a sudden there's a 50 by 100 barn,
Right,
but I'm gonna tax it today. I don't give it
changes
changes on.
on what valuation,
We can measure it with NIM.
okay.
So we know it's a 50 by 100.
So it's a written script,
Yes, it comes out of the cost table. So if we call it an agricultural building that's 50 by 100 and it's 1 story or 2
what
story,
about the land around it, how much is that also?
Well, that's still chapter.
that's still
Because you built it
chapter.
right in the middle of chapter.
Correct.
So now they've got this 50 by 100 commercial or barn or whatever that rate is,
Okay.
and then everything else is still chapter.
Correct.
So we just minus it out of the chapter.
So I just learned something. There are 2 enforcement actions involved. Building has got to take action.
Correct.
There was no permit. And the Board of Assessors,
Have to take
they have to take action.
Correct.
The enforcement action relative in something built without a permit, that's the building department. But eventually they'll get that all straightened out and give that information to you. But in the meantime, You have said, yep, we're taxing it, all right?
Yes.
And then the rest, so that puts the package together. So that was my point about,
Yes.
okay.
Because there are pools just grow out of the ground when it's wet and they fill up with water and there's no permits for pools. And then you look back, there was no pool last year, now there's a pool in a giant deck the size of this room. Well, just because there's no permit doesn't mean we can't tax it on it. And literally, it sounds funny, but people have come in the office and said, you can't tax me on that, I didn't pull a permit.
So, I guess, so, Bill, back to your initial point.
I can come back to my initial point, which is, I'm sorry, advocating privacy. And we talked about this in the beginning before you were here, and I gave in as far as, chapter 9 goes, because we're saying we're giving people a break on taxes, so therefore we're going to surveil them. But I have said from the beginning, I am deeply concerned about this near map technology and surveilling people. I do not want this office to be going around town looking for pools, for example, on residential properties. That I don't think that's right. I don't think we should be, spying on everybody and trying to figure out what they're doing, what they're not doing. They're paying their taxes on the residential property. I think that should be it. I mean, if there's a complaint, or if there's something, obviously when you see one driving down the street, hey, there's a new house going up there. What the heck is that? But I don't want to be.
No, and I will give you that, all right, so let's take another look at that. You live near the fire station in North Dayton. You can't get away with putting a pool in without your neighbors knowing. They're gonna come and they're gonna say, hey, you gotta pay for that pool and the deck and everything else that you just did. All right, so that guy does it. You've got 35 acres out there and you pull them way out in the middle of nowhere. That guy's gonna say, why can he do it and you can't find it? But I can't hide it next to my neighbors. So why can you get away with not paying it? And I have to pay. That's what the argument is.
I'm
not gonna take a position on that.
but I also feel like I don't want.
I'm paying for it because I can't hide it from my neighbors. So why should Bill not pay for it just because he can? That's the argument that you get into.
I understand that argument.
And I get the policing, like, hey, come on now, let's be.
That's the whole joke about it. Can you see it from the road? If you can't see it from the road, then you don't need a permit.
But now with near map you can, and he's saying you don't use near map to, in lieu of, you can't see it from the road.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
First of all, we don't have time to be going on near map and looking for every single pool and shed in town. We don't have time to be playing that near map game. Now, if someone comes in and says, my pool came down 2 years ago, a tree fell on it. Now we can utilize near map to say, okay, 2 years ago, look, there's a pool
Absolutely.
and now it's gone.
Yes.
So if I'm looking at a building permit, oh, I wonder if that addition's done yet. And I go on near map to see the progress of the addition. And I see all of a sudden the pool popped up next door, I'm gonna catch that pool. That's our job, is to see it, but our job is not to
Go find it.
sit there for 8.5 hour day looking for a pool. We
And
don't-
that's kind of, so there's a balance. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a dichotomy. And so to the point where she's looking at 61A, she finds that big barn, she's gonna tax the big barn. And then she's gonna tell planning, hey, did you pull a permit? Okay, you did, well, cool. If you didn't, well, then you guys need to know there's a big barn out there. That's her job, is what she's saying. Now, if she sees a pool in the neighbor's yard while she's looking at the big barn,
Or if I find the big barn and they also put up a pool,
right? So Bill, there's no way around it if you're looking for a tax. That's just the way, what I'm saying.
If you're looking for.
Yeah, if you're looking for the tax,
But it's the part, we're in complete agreement,
Yeah.
right up until the point where I think both of you said, I'm looking at the 61A and oh, the neighbor suddenly had a pool pop up. That's where I have an issue.
Right.
but that's our job.
That's the man.
First of all, near map is a legitimate piece of software. There are rules and regs about how it's used. I don't believe the people in the office, our office, are wasting time tracking whatever, all right? I honestly believe if you come upon something because you're investigating something, quite frankly, sort of like the police, you're investigating this and over here, it's like, holy mackerel, is that a body? That's a stark example, but my point is,
We're obligated to then say something. That's the point though. So if she sees the pool there, she's obligated to say something.
we follow the oath.
Like, that's the point, and that's our job. Like, that's why we're here. That's why we're here, is also, if you see that, Now, are we here to go spy
Okay,
on the neighbors? No.
but if you. I've seen these sort of things in talking about police and what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to.
Right.
For example, and there's ton of court cases talking about, you know, the limit of what police are allowed to see. So in other words, you know, they're allowed to go, they're saying like the curtilage of the property. So a police officer can look at like your front yard or something like that. But a police officer can't look over your 3-acre field in the back. They're simply not allowed to look.
Depending on the circumstance.
Can I?
Depending on the circumstances, yeah.
But if they knock on the neighbor's door and say, can I go stand on your back deck? That is perfectly legal to now look into that backyard. Because you have permission from the neighbor to stand on the back deck and look. Now, if I am looking at this and I see a pool pop up, it's our duty and obligation to tax them on that pool. Because if not, then someone would take me to court and argue, well, you caught this guy's pool when he put up his barn. And you clearly saw this pool next door when you were looking at this addition,
So
but you
you
didn't
pay-
tax.
Yeah.
That's where
I think that's the basic problem.
we're not, the software is approved by DLS.
Right.
DLS,
But it does talk about the way we were talking about here.
yeah,
That was your concern.
That's my
It
concern.
does open this whole can of worms. I think the problem.
And
is just-
when we discussed it, and what made me shut up, basically, is we basically said, this is just gonna be a verification tool. And that was it.
Which is what's being described.
correct.
Not when you get, no, it's not a verification tool.
Oh, it's certainly
When the
is.
next door neighbor put up a pool and, oh, I saw that, so because I saw that, I've got to go report it.
The verification is very similar to doing an audit. You're focused on doing something. I gotta audit this, whatever. I gotta audit Stonegate taxes. If in the course of doing that, something else was discovered.
Right.
And it would affect another board, I would be obligated to say, hey, planning board, by the way, I'm auditing this. I discovered this. It's yours. And I continue doing what I'm doing. What she's describing is exactly being focused on doing something. But you can't put the blinders on and say, well, I'm not gonna do this. Because it's illegal, number one, it's unfair. As assessors elected, we all took an oath.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, let's do this. Let's wrap this up so we can keep moving.
Yeah.
I understand, so everybody's gonna be happy, so.
Yeah.
And we can put this on for another discussion too, because I think it's important.
I think I want to spend some time contemplating, and trying to figure out something.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like some medium ground or something. Yes. It feels to me like you both, like you said, you opened the can of worms.
Yeah.
You know, and-
How do you put the word?
No,
Well,
I don't know exactly what you-
how do we only let a couple out? Put all of them.
how do you protect privacy but do the job you're?
I think that,
Exactly.
that's
How can
discussion.
we
I
walk
think
that
that's a
line?
discussion, but that's a discussion for another time. So
We'll probably
we'll
ask
do
you to
this
come back.
and let
with
Lisa
this.
go back to her office. So that'd be
Well, I want you
perfect.
to say right now.
Oh, she is. Just take her.
This is the
Well,
one.
we gotta approve.
Todd. Oh, where are we at? We're still on the chapter, Lee's.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna get moving. Let's get moving.
So, excuse me. Where is
The one that I looked at, everything.
that, where's the page that,
This one,
yeah, where's that page here?
It's,
they are releasing from their.
It's not a release.
no, and he was his first time, so he put everything on one.
These two together.
So those two together, they're two separate parcels.
Okay.
So, and I explained that to him that moving forward, they would have to be on two separate applications.
Maybe this is why I didn't understand. So these properties adjacent to each other?
Across the street.
Oh, so this is the property here. This is
Hey,
the property right there.
When we were discussing this, I said I wanted to make a motion so that she would have something. So I'm gonna make a motion that effective November 1st, 2022, the Board of Assessors will enforce verification of chapter land using all legal means, including aerial inspection.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, so this looks like Todd Martin, and Beth Martin, 15.5 acres that they are putting into chapter 61A. And then in another lot, that's 3.94 acres with 1 acre per house lot, as we have discussed. So I move that we sign the application for Todd C. Martin and Beth Martin for 1215 lot 87, total acres of 3.94, classified 294, and 0 Center Street, map 8, lot 6, total acres 15.5, classified 15.5.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make a statement for the public. In all of this discussion we just had about chapter land and all of that, we are not specifically referring to any property owner, any piece of property or anything else in the town. This is all intended as a general discussion because we as a board are learning a lot about chapter land.
Motion made and seconded.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Next. That actually that was 61A. So that was farmland. Is that correct?
This one here.
From what one we just signed,
I don't know that one.
15.5
61
acres.
B. This one.
This one's A.
That one's A. This one's B.
Oh, that one's B.
This one's B.
Oh, okay. So this one actually, so that is actual farmland for our discussion, right? So looking at that, that doesn't look like farmland.
So. That's the application. please. So that could have been something we could have thought previous that it wasn't being done. Right, because they're going from A to B.
I'd have to look at the other one as well. It's
Oh,
connected.
oh, yeah. Okay. So
That one has the,
B.
Oh, that one's got a little drawing with it too.
and what? So between the two. Closer look is easier. Between the two is his pasture here. And here,
Okay.
and he's got his paddocks here, it looks like,
Okay.
and that's a round pen.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so it's not all contiguous.
No, it is across the street from each
But
other.
that's 15.5 acres per your discussion. At least 5 of that has to be 5 plus a half, so that's what, 8.5 acres. No, I'm sorry, 7.5 acres. This has, should be farmed. That's
Yeah, so we've
for that
got,
property.
no, because they're two separate parcels. So the total he's farming is 18 acres. So some of it is on one side of the street. And again, he didn't give me two separate applications, so we had to break it down the best I could here. And
But even if you counted 100% of that property across the street, it's nowhere near 7.5 acres. Got 3 acres on one side of the street. So even if you counted all of that as farmland, that's not farmland. That doesn't meet the 7.5 acre requirement.
well, that's the board's call, but
I think I might be moving to rescind that because this is what we just talked about, right?
Wait a minute, if he's classifying
These two go down.
15.5 and 2 point something, is all of that the chapter land?
And he's got 5 acres of wetland.
But that's not farming, it's 61A is agricultural horticulture. And by what you said, 15 acres, you can't have.
It
11.
is. That's the contiguous non-productive.
You said it had to be at least half.
He's got 14.44 in chapter, that's what he requested.
But
Right,
if 11 acres is
but wetland can't be included in the chapter. So if he's got 5 acres of wetland.
5 acres wet.
Yeah.
So also adding,
So he's got 19.44 acres that he's,
Total, and he's farming 14.44.
okay.
Okay, but looking at those pictures, there's not 14 acres of land being farmed.
Oh, well, there's another picture here.
Yeah, it's all forest.
No. There's here, see, there's, would you say attic?
This is the majority of the land right here. It's all forest.
you know, some of that is wet, so you can't.
Okay, so maybe that's part of the five. The
Five.
5 acres might be in there.
It also is included, so he meets the half, the 50%. So let's say it's 5, let's say it's 5 plus the 2.94, let's say the
This is
2.94, that's 7.94.
Across the street.
All right, so all of this,
No, right here.
Red line.
oh, okay, all right, okay.
Now, and again, this is his intention. I don't know if he is actually, or if this is what he wants to be doing moving forward. This is where
You know
keeping
what,
an eye
you know
on.
what, I think we gotta stop. We are now at the point of we have discussed names and voted this thing. We have not talked to this individual. I don't think we can go any further with this. Unless you want to rescind it, the vote, and then we bring this up at another meeting, but we have mentioned the names of these property owners. And this is being discussed. They haven't been notified, so I think we're on.
Yeah, I think so, and this would be the point, approved application. Your map is now used moving forward. Right, so moving forward, so as a grace period, okay, he's got 12 months. Make sure that's 50% and whatever the wetlands include, that sort of thing. So now you're getting a grace period to move forward. You can clearly see that some of it, most of it is adequate to qualify. So now let's keep an eye on your.
I'm okay with that, other than, didn't you say that they have to be already doing it?
They haven't even started
The
it.
intent has to be there.
Correct, they have to have.
So I can see there is some farm.
There's a practice, yeah, and there's an intent to utilize it correctly.
Okay.
He's not trying to put one over, right?
So I simply asked, make sure this person. Say the name, but the.
Yes.
And that's
I
fine.
I can see looking at that picture, that doesn't look like. A farm.
Correct.
So they better be.
Yes.
Yeah, and the intent is that you can see he's clearly doing something, but it's not all.
Yeah, I'm okay.
If someone's going into chapter land, you can't expect them to have 15 acres cleared out and already be.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
That would be my fault because I misunderstood what you said. I thought you were saying it had to already be established and then.
The intent
So
and,
as long as the intent is there, we're going to be able to say.
yes.
So again, this, this one. So this is 61A also. And this is the land we discussed earlier. We waived the right of first refusal on. And we've got, here says 5 acres of pasture and 12 acres of woodland trails. So I would say this does not qualify.
That's the one they were moving,
This removing.
release, they're releasing.
I'm sorry. This form should look very different.
Yes.
Yes.
We gotta get good at reading.
Somebody, so this releases it. Now, if somebody buys this whole chunk of land, let's say the town says, well, we're not gonna buy it. So somebody buys this whole chunk of land, with the house on it. It is not in chapter unless they can, the new
can
owners
refile.
come in and say. what
Yes,
we
in
did.
this particular property, there's not enough to maintain the chapter land
Okay.
without the contiguous parcel that is
Not gonna be sold.
not gonna be sold.
Okay, so.
So
this is-
we won't see this 61 in the
This is
application.
not-
Chapter we not.
Correct.
Okay,
Not for that part.
not for that problem. Gotcha.
Might just look like I had a question, but I'm. So why is this page on the front say 3.7 and 2.7, which I think is the house lot area? But this application here is talking about 12 acres of woodland trails.
Because it was the contiguous property
That's the
that was
contiguous.
included.
Right.
So those properties were combined at one time. If you show.
Okay, so the answer is also, all right, the yellow land is being sold.
This is being sold.
Now, when I owned the yellow and all the blue, green, whatever, it was together. The yellow's coming out, but I'm going to keep the green in it, so that's what made it eligible. The little lot, if it's going away, it's not eligible any longer, but the big chunk I still own, I'm
It's all-
keeping it in it.
Correct.
I understand.
And there's enough, and
Yes.
Yeah,
there's enough. there.
So this is the original chapter land lien that shows
Yeah.
this map and that acreage, and that's what we're removing.
I remember my other question, isn't there a rollback that it's fine?
Yes.
Things go out?
Yes.
And is that like part of this documentation?
No.
right here?
I haven't.
Separate.
It will be separate. We were just trying to get it done so they.
How many more you got there, Steph?
What?
How many more do you have?
Right.
So. I'm still having difficulty understanding, I've got.
We're just taking out the piece that's in yellow, we're taking that out and
I
making
get
it.
that, I get that, but what is this? This application here, saying we're putting something in, is this a taking it out, right?
This, okay, can I just refer back to this? So this, in our system right now, this is all one piece according to our system because it was contiguous, whatever. Now, this was her application for this year. Since then, she said, I'm going to, well, that's for next year, next fiscal year. Since then, she said, I've decided to sell this. So right at first
So is
refusal,
this something already approved?
that's,
It's something that was,
26, so.
yes. So since then, she said, I'm taking this out, but I'm leaving this back again. So this is just to take this piece out. And now we have to go back into our system and make this a separate lot and make that a separate.
So this is only covering this piece here.
No, this application includes this cover.
what's the whole thing before she decided to sell?
So the application was sent in for the whole piece, the house and everything else.
The 17.
Since that application, she said, look, I'm selling off a little piece. We're pulling that piece out.
Yes,
Okay, so the original application, which is showing it right there. Right?
correct.
Okay,
So we are not approving this.
No.
no, that was already approved. That's just showing you what the original was. We're not acting on it.
So this is FYI.
Correct.
All we're doing is voting to notify the board of selectmen, we recommend they do not exercise.
and
their
then.
right.
And now we pull it out. This is that's to pull it out of the just that little section. That's what we're acting. Pulling that little section.
So we are pulling out nothing else. We're taking I move that we sign the release of 61A property of 2410 Cedar Street, map 14, lot 47, total acres 3.77, last 10 acres 2.77.
So,
Which you made it second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I apologize for the concept sometimes.
application.
Yeah, so this is going in.
Yeah. I'll just put, we'll see what it's done, you know, and because they do, honestly, they look, I was typing that one out, and I'm like, this is so wrong, it's only 3 acres, and I'm like, oh, wow, really?
See, that's farm limits. I move that we accept the classification of 61 property for 2319 Old Wellington Street, map 14, lot 11, total acres 11.97, classified 6.24 for JE Realty Trust, Jason Cabral.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. But everyone is.
Everyone needs to on top. Even with the red, it's hard to see.
This looks awful. I like it. So a similar piece of property, it's like next door. A motion that we accept the classification of 61 acre property for Realty Trust care of Richard D. Zurich and Jenna Zurich, 2291 Old Wellington Street, map 14, lot 10A, total acres of 11.33, classified acres of 9.1.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
So these are different names, but they're next door to each other, or is this the same people? It's coincidence.
It looks like a shared driveway, so I'm guessing they're related in some fashion.
This second half is Eric, it's a forestry program that you have to sign those 2 copies. So you guys can talk.
Am I doing?
You say the top one is 61A.
Forestry, yes.
61A, meaning.
And now-
forestry, meaning
And it's going into forestry.
Yeah. for forestry, it's-
that-
Yep. Yep, so it's A now and it's gonna be 61.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just that they're growing trees.
They, forestry needs to do 61 there, only 61. Just to confuse us.
So we've got, I move that we accept the 61A application of Andrew P. Belkett for 2355 for Wellington Street, lot 10, lot 40. Classified, total is 14.8, classified is 10.8.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
They should have 61T for trees.
Now, how are we gonna verify that they're actually cutting down?
That's the forester, that's his job.
Or
Yeah.
You're not just.
No, we
You must be all over Bristol County.
One of the forestry, did the forestry plan and they come back in the 10 years and see that,
They come back 10 years from now?
see if it's, yeah, if it's a 10-year plan. So they come back in 10 years and look to see what you've done, and then you haven't yet. You've got to sign those other pages that say.
Yes.
So they verify that the work is being done.
Oh, yeah, actually, Jack Roberts is the forest master for the town forests.
I'm just gonna give this to you, make copies just so.
Be a forest master?
So this is just Gateway. And we were able to submit the LA3, which is the sales report, working on with Rich Gonzalez. And we've got approval for the 2 that we submitted so far. It does say Board of Assessors is approving or submitting in their blah, blah, blah. So I saw Nancy, I asked her to come in to submit it. But when the man from DOR, this guy,
James Parker?
he said that really it's the person that's responsible, that's been working on it, that they would ask the questions.
So you should sign it.
I should be the one submitting it, but it did say Board of Assessors, so I wasn't sure.
Okay,
So that's,
we covered all the bases.
yes, we did. So this is,
FYI.
yeah, that's just, this is the LA 15 and the other one is the LA 3, so you can see just a sample of what we sent. Just, yeah, yeah, no, it's, there really was nothing to vote on, I just wanted to keep everyone up. And just to sum things up. This is MMA annual meeting and trade show that Nancy thought would be.
Yeah, they're, well, they turn to having the meeting line and set the times. It's a Friday, Saturday. The first day they will have the introduction, they have guest speakers and all that. And then after at 11 o'clock, the trade show opens up, and that's all sorts of companies and services and businesses. They cover all sorts of areas. They have workshops in the afternoon. I think they cover all sorts of events.
I didn't know if you had a
And
chance.
so that's just to let you know if you would like to attend, you gotta register online. I believe it's second.
You found me, huh?
No, Nancy did.
Go online.
I did,
and,
I was gonna put it in the
tell you about
correspondence.
workshops and all, everything you've done on.
Wait a second, they have a woman
So,
elected
Nancy-
municipal official.
Nancy, I sent
luncheon.
this in,
What
Nancy.
about the guys?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I thought
Can
you
we
were
go to
kidding
that?
me. I saw that. I said,
What's this?
So what is this? What-
So am I,
I'm the treasurer.
am I keeping this?
No,
Yeah,
you just give
that's
it back. I mean, unless you
Are
want.
we going to this? What is this? Just to tell us when we go?
You know.
Yeah, there is a registration fee.
You don't have to register by myself.
The registration information.
Oh, it's all on here?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to, it's up 22 pages, so.
I've never been. Is it cool?
I go every year.
So what? This
I go to this, I go to the Friday. I only stayed over once.
1, 2, 3.
So what did you want to say? Oh, okay.
I'm
I
on.
could do. Face. The one thing I can't do is.
No, you gotta get-
We hold that up for the camera.
that was really nice.
All right, that's it.
Hey, he looks
All right,
pretty
so-
good when he cleans up.
So are we done this? So we're
So-
public input now or are you still?
Oh, yeah, I guess I kind of skipped over it. just because-
All right, you can go ahead and do it.
Anyone's interested in going to that MMA meeting, just see Stephanie, because it has to be paid for in advance, and member towns pay the lesser amount of the registration. And the registration is probably 2 days. If you want to stay over at Sheridan, there's a special rate, but you have to pay for that and then get reimbursed. But
Where is this? In Boston?
it's at the Sheridan, the Hotel Sheridan, and of course the Heinz is right there attached.
Oh, I see.
So it's all in that area in the back bay. So, in the past, selectmen have gone, Tom Ferry has gone, if there are workshops he wants, Jim Aguirre has gone.
Is everybody
Now,
now?
at one time,
Like planning, zoning, is everybody? running?
anybody can, if they want to, but it's during the day, and so a lot of people can't go because of. So,
Okay.
it's just an informational thing, yes.
Oh, film it for you.
I move that we accept the minutes of 9/28.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. No one anticipated item.
all about public.
You want to find that one?
All about.
Is that the one we used?
No.
That was on Facebook.
No, there was a board of assessors, but it is.
She was, yeah.
I'm not unanticipated, I just asked, Stephanie, would you just let, Bill and Eric know about the last email and history from Mr. Federoff relative to Stonegate, this is an informational item. Now, you sent that email to,
Yeah, he sent it to the lawyer, Rossi,
but it was emailed to,
yeah, and said that we are correct, that is what is owed in his opinion.
it's 42,000.
They were broken up, and then he said, oh, there was like 2 lots that still belong to them, but it's all in his name, so they can hash that out themselves. So that's kind of,
Yay.
And Terry said that Stonegate has withdrawn without prejudice. Until we get that whole thing straightened out, we're going to have to come back and start over with zoning board. Yeah, but that's, the audit, as you guys, we got the results the last time. He's not contesting it, he claims the total all along that running road. So,
Right then.
not our problem.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Adjourn. Lisa, thank you so much for coming. Super informative. Very interesting. So sorry to take you away from your desk for so long. That was really informative, and I think people in town need to know what exactly.
And that vote that we took about effective November